think I have unmuted myself here, hopefully, and you see my screen. We'll jump over to the weather here. Beautiful morning. Another, boy, if you haven't been out yet, it's just one of those days it's just nice to be outside and get around. We've got a couple more coming, though. I think most of you will probably appreciate the outlook here. We're looking at a fairly straightforward forecast. I did want to start, though, looking at our season a little bit thus far. And a variable we don't look at a lot, at least in terms of the day-to-day variability. But this is a graphic of daily maximum temperatures at Lansing, and it's at 1 point, but it's representative of what we've observed across a lot of the state during the growing season. It goes back to the beginning of May. And for these individual little blue bars here, these are the observed max and min temperature of that given day, going all the way up here through, it's up through Tuesday of this week. But the key issue here that I want to sort of focus on and show you it's an interesting trend, but that is the colors here in the background. And this particular graphic gives us an idea of what the observed temperatures were in a given day relative to normal. And I think that's again part of the lesson of this, or the idea behind this. And in the background here, that brown area, those are the normal. The top of that is the normal maximum temperature for that date in the year, and the bottom is the normal minimum, and then the sort of the pink color at the top, that's the record warmest for the date, and the blue is the record coolest for the date. So it gives us an idea, again, how much variability there is in daily temperatures as we go through the course of the year. You can see that one thing, there's an annual cycle here, of course, with our temperatures, and they peak out typically in July, mid to late July. That's when we have the warmest normal temperatures, and then we're on a sort of a slow downslide here into the fall season. So that's sort of obvious and gives you some perspective of what we're looking at here. But during the 2024 growing season, I think the point is here, if we look here early on, it was a significantly warmer than normal start of the season during the spring and the early summer. The other thing to note is that we had these big swings, a week or so long spells of either abnormally warm weather. You can see one of those here in the third week of May. Here's another one in the middle of June where we were really, really consistently above the normals. We also had a couple episodes where we were down below normal, but by and large, again, if you take the averages here, we were several degrees above normal, and that was true for much of the state, and that's what led to, our current surplus of growing degree days. But look what happens here over the last couple months, really since the latter part of June, and then moving up to the present time. One of the issues is, look at the observed max and min temperatures here in blue are pretty well, they're well behaved, and most of them are within that normal range. That's something we don't see very often. Not only that, but it's consistently in that range for much of July and even August thus far. We've even had some cooler than normal weather, of course, here as of late. But the variability here is, for the last couple months or several weeks, has been remarkably low. I would submit that is a positive thing for most of our crops. It depends on the crop and what's out there, but for many crops, that's a really positive thing. Plants like stability, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. And of course, the other thing too, if we think about some of our big crops like corn and soybeans at this time of the year, sensitive developmental stages, reproductive stages, that type of thing. And add on a lot of water. Above normal rainfall, and you've got a really pretty good recipe here for certainly enhanced yield potential or productivity, given that. And you can see that here, though, with the time trace. We started off very highly variable and warm, and we have, at least for the last several weeks, we've been close to normal, which we don't see very often, and unusually less variable. So at any rate, just a little bit about temperature, something we just don't see that often. But this season, I think it may play a role. Hopefully, it will ultimately in your crop performance. Well, looking at the last week here, at the very right-hand side of that graphic, with our recent cooler than normal temperatures, we did have over most of the state mean temperature departures really close to the long-term average, but many areas we are a degree or two below. And again, that a lot of that is given the weather over the last several days, where we've had lows in the 40s, actually had a few 30s in the Upper Peninsula and interior northern lower. We actually had some mins on Tuesday morning that did get down into the upper 30s. So an early taste of fall, and that's courtesy of a Canadian air mass that moved into the state here last weekend with a big change of development of a trough, upper air trough over the region. Precipitation wise here in the middle, rain over almost all the state, and the winner here in terms at least the max totals for the state was the northern lower. 2 to some cases 4 inches of rain fell. And you can see in yellow here is where we have some of the heavier amounts, but all of the state got significant rainfall. Most areas at least an inch. A couple exceptions to that. And I would also note, importantly, that areas of especially western upper Michigan that have trended drier and have been drier for several weeks now, they did get significant rain, in many cases 1 to 2 inches, and so that was beneficial for that part of the state as well. But everybody got rain, and we had that weather system over the weekend, and the other part of it was it fell in many pieces. And so a lot of that did hopefully soak in and didn't cause problems when we have too much in too little time. On the far right-hand side here are precipitation surpluses and deficits for the last 30 days. You can see most of lower Michigan with greens running a surplus of precipitation, but still some deficits in the north. And that's where we, about 18% of Michigan currently classified by the drought monitor as abnormally dry. That's the very beginning of the scale that they use. And much of that is in western upper Michigan, but the good news, again, we did get some rain in that area of the state here over the last week. Degree day totals with the recent cooler than normal weather. We range in looking at our base 50. These are corn degree day units, 8650 cutoffs. The departures on the right-hand side here. We're still running surpluses over much, if not all, of lower Michigan, especially across the south. But note that we do have some deficits in the far northern part of the state, western, central, upper Michigan. So it depends on where you are. And you can see that Michigan here is sort of along an area with surpluses to our south and east, and then a little bit of deficit off to our west. But it has been, I think everybody appreciates, certainly here and in lower Michigan, it has been a wet summer, at least for the southern half or more of the state. That's definitely true for much of the Corn Belt and the upper Midwest. And so this, again, cooler, as you can see, deficits here, and wetter than normal season is setting up some very high potential yields across the upper Midwest. And again, that certainly is justified by the weather that we've seen. We're through our sensitive stages of development and looking beyond that towards maturation and so forth. But we made it through for much of the Corn Belt, made it through that sensitive stage or sensitive stages with quite a bit of water in the landscape. Well, looking ahead, where are we headed? This is a forecast of conditions during the last 5 days of August, or almost the last 5 days. I don't have the 31st on here, but the message here is that we are looking at another change, a gradual change, but a significant one, a noticeable one, and that is we're going to be seeing a warming trend really beginning in earnest here over the next 24 hours and then into the weekend and into next week. And if we look at the upper air pattern here for this, again, 25th through the 30th of the month, there's a big upper air ridge, because right now we've got a trough still over the eastern part, and that with that trough there, we've got northerly flow or northwesterly flow aloft, and that's why we've had this they're delightful, wonderful, cool weather conditions here, several degrees below normal, but that's because of the troughing feature. And the bottom line is that troughing feature is going to shift off to the east and be replaced by the ridge, which again means one thing, and that's it's going to warm up. Not only is it going to warm up, it's going to probably be drier than normal as well. That's what's here on the right. These yellows and browns here are areas where precipitation is expected to be less than normal. And surface temperature across much of the Midwest, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, above normal temperatures are expected. So a pretty significant change is coming here. That's the major theme of the forecast. This morning, though, we still have, there's the Canadian high pressure system here right over Michigan, and now just starting to edge off into the northeast here. But clear skies, a satellite down here and below, you can see over almost all of the state. There's a little bit of fog here and there, but just a beautiful morning. Temperatures in the upper 40s and low 50s in most spots, which is several degrees below what it typically is for the middle of August or the third week of August. So we are again running typically 4 to as much as 8 degrees below normal. But today, as that high slides a little bit further to the east, here it is tomorrow, we will see a few degrees warmer high temperatures than we did yesterday or on Tuesday. Most of the state today will be mid to upper 70s. Lows tonight, not quite as cool as they have been, probably in the low 50s. And then by Saturday, you can see the high shifts off to the east. We really get into the return flow by Saturday. We'll see our winds shift out of the southwest and bring warmer air up from the south and lead to a very, very noticeable warming trend. We'll be back up into the 80s on Saturday. And then by Sunday and Monday, we're looking at high temperatures back into the mid and upper 80s, in some cases close to 90 once again. The other noticeable thing here too that's we will see an increase in humidity, especially late in the weekend into early next week. So it's going to be uncomfortable. So I guess the lesson here is summer's not over. We're going to see some definitely summer-like weather here at the end of the weekend or early next week. One other thing here that it is important, I haven't said much about precipitation, and that's because with this pattern, there's not much expected. There's one exception. That is a frontal boundary up here off to our north and west. That's going to try to make its way to Michigan, but it may make it to the northern part of the state, but that's probably about it, and it's going to wash out. So we will see the chance for a few isolated showers or a thunder shower, especially in western upper Michigan during the day tomorrow. And then later on during the weekend, the possibility, and again, I think the key word is isolated at best, but for the vast majority of locations and for the really much of the upcoming week, we're looking at dry conditions, fair, dry, during the day with a noticeable warming trend here. So not much in precipitation. And if we look at the total here for the upcoming week, there's a light green here, that color less than 1/10 of an inch, and that's probably generous because most areas for much of the upcoming week will be completely dry. So if you're working on that fourth cutting of alfalfa or a forage harvest, boy, this is a pretty good week you're looking at, our forecast here, but many other activities as well. The weather conditions should support quite a bit to happen, although it will become increasingly warm, humid, and more uncomfortable as we get towards the end of the weekend. Our water demand, potential evapotranspiration rates here with that kind of a forecast, with the warming trend and with sunny skies, they will be at least normal, if not above normal levels here for the upcoming week. Daily values here ranging from 0.14 inches per day on average in the north to about 0.18 or 1800ths of an inch of water evaporation in the far south. Again, that's the reference PET value, and those are above what we typically see during third week in August. So in some spots, again, keep an eye on the water. We will be needing water as time goes on because almost very little or none expected here from precipitation. In the medium range, the lesson I think here, the take-home message is that the upper air, while it's moving slowly, the wave pattern across North America, it is going to change. And the ridging feature that you saw earlier that we expect for late in August with warmer temperatures, that won't be here forever. It will be here for a better part of a week, but then probably moving on. And we may see a return of troughing once again, maybe in early September. But for the 6 to 10 and the 8 to 14 day time frames, I think the direction here and message is certainly above normal or warmer than normal mean temperatures, and for most of the state, normal to below normal precipitation totals. So a little bit like what we just saw at the beginning of the forecast here, with warmer and drier than normal conditions expected for much of the next 2 weeks. But the caveat is changes are expected beyond that, at least temporarily. We may move back to a cooler period, maybe not quite as cool as what we've seen here recently or earlier in August, but definitely, I guess the bottom line is that warm weather, while it is expected to continue on average, there are going to be some breaks in it, and that the next break probably comes in early September. Finally, new long outlook set of ensemble of long lead outlooks here for the fall and for the next month. They're very, very, very similar and consistent with previous issues of this outlook. But the message here: warmer than normal conditions expected for much of the fall overall in terms of averages, both for the month of September, that's on the top, and then for the September through November period on the bottom, with no direction on precip. That's the equal chances. So there's really again, just no forecast direction there. So again, the message here is plan for a continuation of warmer than normal. Probably this would certainly translate to advanced phenology once again, but things finishing up a little earlier. Some of our crops in the state already have been finishing up or getting close to maturation earlier than is typically the case. That will certainly be the trend we'll see over the next several weeks as well. That's probably, well, again, it's something I think we could probably have some fairly high confidence in. And so wrapping up here, once again, a straightforward forecast, fair and dry in most areas here for the foreseeable future, next several days, if not the whole week, with a very noticeable warming trend and a return of heat and humidity by the beginning of next week. That's the big news. And then looking beyond that, as you saw, we still expect temperatures to be warmer than normal, averaging here as we move into the month of September.